Welcome, everybody, to this emergency Substack Live because we have a lot of breaking news. The breaking news is Donald Trump is out of his mind, terrified that they're about to lose the House 3 months,
Yep.
3 months into them being in control. I am here with my friend Michelle Kinney of the Seneca Project. And Michelle, this is incredible news. They just pulled Elise Stefanik's nomination.
I am Julie. Okay. So I grew up in that district. I have not lived there since I was younger. Obviously, it's been a long time, but my whole family still lives there. All my cousins, my parents, everybody. So I know the district very, very, very well. My good friend Tedra Cobb ran against Elise 2 different times. So I know a lot about what it's even like running against her because I've talked to Tedra quite a bit. Anyways, so I've been emotionally and obviously politically invested in this race, in the special election that's going to be coming, or was supposed to be coming. And my mom, I woke up this morning and my mom had sent me an article that was like, they might pull her nomination. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I didn't see that coming. And I was like, no, no, no. I was like, this is just, there's somebody at my door. Hold on, sorry.
No problem. Well, while Michelle is getting whoever's at
Sorry.
her door, I will tell you the reason they're terrified is because they just lost a special election in Pennsylvania for a Pennsylvania Senate seat, state House seat, that literally a state Senate seat that Trump won by 15 points. And the Democrats just picked up that seat, which is crazy.
Yes.
I mean, this is not a seat that Democrats are picking up under
No.
normal circumstances. They also have two seats coming up, Mike Waltz's seat
Hmm.
in Florida and our friend Matt Gaetz's seat in Florida, both hardcore Republican seats.
Right.
They are panicking about potentially losing those next Tuesday.
Yes.
If they lost those two seats and they lost Stefanik's seat, that would be the end of the House majority.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yep. And I mean, and you know, Julia, as well as anybody else, usually when they pick these people for their cabinets, they're picking people, if from the House or the Senate, safe seats that
Yep.
if there was to be in a special election, there wouldn't be any, danger of them losing a majority. And in the House, it's super, super slim, which we know. So so what was happening, and we've talked about this, is that it's really difficult to win up there. It has become a ruby, ruby, ruby red MAGA sort of district. But about a third of the electorate there is independent. So these aren't people who have ever elected somebody super crazy. Because Elise Stefanik, when she came into office, was a very normal,
Yep. She
normal
was a bushy.
Republican.
She was a bushy.
Right. She was a compassionate conservative who came from the Bush White House and was considered sort of a normie. So during her transition into super MAGA or ultra MAGA, she's been able to trick people into thinking she's still normal. So the path, though, for a Democrat to win would be if there was a third party conservative to split the vote. And that is what was happening. So the Republicans in New York 21 were having a hard time picking their candidate to run. The Conservative Party up there, which is a whole different party, they usually align with the Republicans. They had picked someone that they liked. But there's this other guy, I say guy, he's kid, I don't know. He was very young. His name is Anthony Constantino. He's from Amsterdam, New York, and he owns a sticker company. They call him the Sticker King. And
Okay.
he's not a good candidate. I mean, I've seen interviews with him and I'm like, what's going on here? But he has money and is not afraid to be crazy. And he has aligned and become friends with Steve Bannon and Roger Stone. And he even did a fundraising event just a few weeks ago in Glens Falls, New York, that was a cage match fight. So he was, as of yesterday, talking about running this third party seat or third party campaign and going so far as to threaten to challenge a Republican incumbent even in 2026. So I think they saw the writing on the wall because this has happened once before. Bill Owens in 2009, when he was chosen to be Barack Obama's Secretary of the Army, he ran, and there was the same thing that happened. There was two conservatives that ran, and which split the votes and allowed the Democrat to win. And he was up there for I think I don't know 4 years or something, and then he ended up quitting, and then that's when Elise Stefanik came in. So it's not impossible. And if there was a path, this was going to be it. And listen, I don't know what's being said behind closed doors, but it certainly looked like between the anger and the circumstances of the electorate, what's going on, the unpopular policies of Donald Trump and the Republicans. Even Steve Bannon was talking last week about Florida 6, and he's like, I don't know that we're going to win that. I think that they're afraid that they're going to lose, especially after what happened in the state Senate race in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. Which they flipped a state Senate seat that's been Republican for what, like 40 something years or
I
something
mean,
like that? I mean, it's crazy.
you see the way the tide is turning, despite the
Hmm.
fact that they're trying to gaslight all of us into thinking that
Right,
somehow George Soros is bringing in these paid protesters at all these town halls. They
right.
know as well as we know that they're not paid protesters. They know as well as we know that those are
Hmm.
regular people who are pissed off about having, oh, I don't know, their Medicaid taken away, their
I'm at,
veterans benefits taken away, their social security that's about to be taken away. Just
hmm.
the complete and utter disregard for democratic norms that this administration is
Yep.
pursuing. The fact that some unelected billionaire is running around with all of our personal information
Hmm.
and has access to all of that, including our social security numbers.
Yeah.
The fact that, oh, I don't know, the entire foreign policy apparatus and national security apparatus of this administration is on a little private signal chat discussing
Right.
war plans, or as Pete Hegseth likes to refer to them, attack plans,
Right. Because they're different. They're
because
different,
they're
Julie.
different, putting our military at risk and also our clandestine officers in the CIA at risk because
Mhm.
that person's name was disclosed by her boss, John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA.
Right.
All of those are now coming together in 3 months
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tell people across this country that, wait a second, Donald Trump, maybe you don't really have the mandate that you've convinced yourself that you have. In fact, people just want the fucking price of eggs to go down.
Yeah.
And those keep going up too.
Right. And it's
And
only going to get worse.
and it's only going to get worse. And you talk about this all the time, Michelle, because you know that district like the back of your hand.
Hmm.
Fort Drum is up there.
Yes. The Fort Drum, the 10th Mountain Division, aside from just the military, the active military personnel, it is the largest employer for civilian federal workers in the entire area. It is a huge, huge part of the economy there. So if they were to slash any federal funding for any personnel there, it would devastate the area. In addition to that, it is right on the Canadian border. So commerce, tourism are big parts. Hello, hi, this is Sterling. Hello,
Hi,
bud.
Sterling.
Um, uh, a huge part of the economy there as well. They're already starting to feel the pain because Canadians are not don't feel safe coming to the United States, so they're
Of
canceling their
course.
vacation plans in the Thousand Islands and St. Lawrence River. I mean, Lake Placid, Saranac Lake. I mean, the area is, I mean, the district itself, because it's just so huge. It's so huge, and it fills up such a huge part of the state. It's very diverse in its needs and its industries, which is also leads me to farming and agriculture, another huge part of the economy in this part of the state. And so it really, I mean, this district is very unique, and it serves as this microcosm for all of the horrible, unpopular policies of Donald Trump and how they're going to affect people. Because there's also parts of this district that don't have broadband. They don't have access to healthcare. They have to drive sometimes 2, 3 hours to see a good doctor.
And when they cut,
Um,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michelle, but when they
yeah,
cut Medicaid, that's not poor people in the inner city, which is what
right.
they want you to believe, right?
Yes,
That's rural healthcare. Those
that's
hospitals
right.
will, if hospitals don't have Medicaid reimbursement, they will shut down. So if you're living somewhere in at the the foot of the Adirondacks up there, if you're living
Uh-huh.
somewhere, I mean, I've been up there. It is really rural. People don't
Yeah,
think of New York. People who are not from New York don't think of New York as really rural.
yeah,
It is as rural as
yeah,
Appalachia up there. I mean,
yeah,
it is
it is.
really, really, really remote. And you
Hmm.
feel when you're up there that you're at the end of the world in a very
Yeah.
nice way. It is beautiful up there.
Yeah, it's stunning, but
Yeah.
it's
But
there's
it's
the boonies.
but it
Like,
is the back of the beyond, right? And so I say that because you will have to drive, I don't know where, Syracuse?
yeah, I mean, my parents live near Fort Drum. All of their doctors in Syracuse, which is like over an hour drive. That's
So
usually
think
where
about
they have to
that.
go. Yeah,
And
yeah,
when the emergency room gets when hospitals shut down, I God
yeah.
forbid somebody has a heart attack.
Right. I know.
That's
And
what's happening up there. But I
right.
want to focus because excuse me, and the Schadenfreude has to come out for a second.
Oh my God, are you
I
kidding?
mean, I don't smoke, but if I had a cigarette, I'd be sitting here right now with
Oh,
a little
oh,
glass of like, with a little martini, a little cigarette here, because this woman, Elise Stefanik,
soulless
who
craven.
first was on my radar back in the day when I was at Fox, back in the
Mhm,
day that I was on the five at Fox, and I remember this so well because I was sitting there next to Dana Perino, who's a former Bush White House press secretary,
mhm.
and she was ecstatic.
Yep,
Our friend Elise Stefanik, she's so young, she's in her 20s, and
yep,
she just won. And this was like the Bushies were thrilled, and she's
yep.
normal, and she's one of us, and she's not part of this whole crazy cray cray situation. They thought she was the future.
Mhm.
And that's how she presented herself. And that's how she got elected. And by the way, I don't begrudge a Republican getting elected because she was a
Of
normal
course.
Republican.
Right.
So God bless. But what she did, and she knows.
Yeah,
The part about Elise Stefanik is she's not a wackadoodle who got elected because she drank the MAGA Kool-Aid.
that's
She
right.
knows. And she made an affirmative decision
Mhm,
to take away everything she ever stood for,
mhm.
all of her conservative, with a real small c, conservative principles.
Yep.
Her, the woman went to Harvard, and I don't say that people who went to Harvard are better than everybody else. I don't mean it that way.
But
But she made that a big, big talking point about how she was smart and she went to Harvard and she prided herself on being part of the quote unquote elite.
yep.
And what she has now done, because she thought that she was going to be Donald Trump's vice president,
Oh yeah.
or she thought if he lost that she would be on the short list to be the first female president. And she
Mhm.
understood full well that the way to get ahead of the Republican Party these days is
Yep.
to take away everything you've ever believed in,
Mhm.
all of it, and go full MAGA. And the fact that this backfired on her, that she's going back to the house with her tail between her legs,
Oh,
and she
it's
could have, it's fantastic. Chef's kiss. Fantastic, because that's what she deserves for
oh
being a
yeah.
complete and utter effing sellout.
Yep. She is a craven, soulless individual. I think she's like a year younger than me, maybe 2 years younger than me. So I do know people who were at Harvard at the same time as her.
Yep.
And they have told me that nobody talks to her anymore. Because they're like, I don't know who she is. I like, who is this person? She was there at the same time as Pete Buttigieg, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, like this was, a big time to be at Harvard. There's a lot of people. And so you look at the at the people that Harvard kind of spit out at that time. It's like you couldn't
Oh,
have a more
except for
you know,
Buttigieg, I don't know. The rest of
right,
them
I
don't
know.
sound
It's
so
like
good,
Pete
right?
Buttigieg is like such this,
Yeah.
brilliant, compassionate, wonderful speaker person, and and you got Mark Zuckerberg, who is, just I can't even start. I don't know where to begin with him. And then Elise Stefanik, who's just very smart. I mean, she got kicked out of I don't know what it was called, the democracy something or other with Harvard. They kicked her out of that after January 6th because she sided with all the MAGAs after January 6th and was trying to gaslight the American public about what happened and why it happened. And she's the one who basically spearheaded the getting Liz Cheney out of her leadership role. I mean, uh, it's it's wild. And I was talking to Tedra after all this happened because I was like, holy shit,
And
And
we had a
she
lot of people join since you mentioned who Tedra is the first time.
oh
So a lot of
yeah,
people
so
saw people.
my good friend Tedra Cobb, she was the candidate, the Democratic candidate who ran against Lee Stefanik 2 times. In 2020, she didn't really cut into her numbers at all, but the first time she ran, she did, and it was interesting because, during Donald Trump's presidency in that first midterm election, she felt the heat. Everybody was feeling the heat because again of all of the really unpopular policies and people were suffering, but this time is obviously so much worse. And so Elise Stefanik, I mean, she is a political windsock. She is a mean girl. She is a very controlled and contrived person. There is a reason why she never holds town halls. And I think she said something the other day like, "Oh, I had so many town halls." No, she didn't. That is bullshit. She had town halls that were invite only and usually on the phone because she
Yep.
never wanted to be cornered. She never wanted anyone to challenge her in person to be able to film that or anything like that. She called the cops on peaceful protesters and outside one of the offices, like, and by the way, again, rural areas, these are not like big places, so you've got what, 20, 30, retirees outside with signs and stuff. She called the cops on them. um she had an advisor. His name is Alex DeGrasse, I think is how you say his last name. He, I think, was a huge part of her demise in her character because he is also mean, uh, horrible, nasty. Really, I think brought out the worst in her. And really, I think showed her the way into MAGA land of just being a cruel, um, mean person. And I we used to joke. We used to joke at my last job. So anybody joined, I used to be the creative director at the Lincoln Project for like 3.5 years. And so I made sure that we made plenty of content about Elise Stefanik. We made an ad about her called Mean Girl, about her calculations and her strategy of trying to kick people out in order to get herself to the front of the line to become Donald Trump's vice president. And she wanted to be Speaker of the House, I think. But she I used to think she was Regina George from Mean Girls, but she's not. She's not Regina George. She's Gretchen Wieners. She's Gretchen Wieners. She has a chip on her shoulder. Her father invented invented the toaster strudel. How dare you insult her? And she wasn't a cool kid growing up. She didn't have a lot of friends. I mean, she went to a private all girls school outside of Albany. She went to high school with Andrew Cuomo's top advisor. What was her
Yes, they
name?
were best friends, and then they had
They
a
were
massive
best
falling out.
friends. They were best friends. She was in Elise Stefanik's wedding. And then during COVID, when Elise Stefanik went after Andrew Cuomo at the very, very beginning, they did this and they no longer speak.
Well, they're both mean
So
girls, so I don't really.
I
That's
mean,
not
yeah,
fair.
I
Yeah.
mean, exactly. But anyways, it couldn't have happened to a nicer person.
But it's just so perfect because
I
it's
know.
such an admission. Let's put her aside for a second. It's such an admission
Hmm.
by all of these people, from
Yeah.
the president who had to pull her nomination on down
Hmm.
to Mike Johnson, who went out there and said, these are not real protesters. These are paid protesters. And of
Right.
course, we got to play the whole Jewish to globalist card by throwing
Right.
George
Right.
Soros.
Right.
And God knows, okay, I've been in Democratic politics for 30 years. I've never met George Soros. I don't
Yeah.
even
I'm
know.
like, where is he?
The
I mean,
only
I
time, the
don't.
only time I hear his name is from Republicans. Like I wish I'd met George. I wish George
I
Soros was doing
know.
everything he's been accused of doing. Because
I know
please,
somebody accused the Seneca Project of being funded by George Soros. I'm like, I wish. That'd be
I know, right?
great.
Like George Soros, if you're listening, please, I want to meet you. Please fund
Right.
me because I have never, nor do I know anybody who's actually funded by George Soros. But
Right.
that's neither here nor there.
Right. Right. Right.
So, but I love how they're bullshitting and gaslighting their own base, who of course is buying it hook, line, and sinker. But of
Hmm.
course, with all these people, you got to look at what they do, not what they say.
Right.
So, if there are any MAGA people watching, and I know there aren't, but just in case by some weirdo chance you're hate watching this right now, because I know a
Right.
lot of times we actually get people hate watching us on over it,
Yeah. All the time.
understand what's happening. They just admitted that everybody hates their policies.
Hmm.
Otherwise, in a solidly red Republican ruby red district like New York 21,
Yep.
they would not be telling the women who completely impaled herself on the altar of Donald Trump that she has to take her dream job. And by the way, I've been to that residence that the United States ambassador to the United Nations
Hmm.
has. It is stunning. At least
Is it in
Stefanik
New
was,
York?
it's in New York. It's
Yeah.
sick. It's
Yeah.
sick. Let me tell you something. She was about, like, if you want one job in the administration, it's that job.
Yeah. Like, could
Because
she get to live in the city?
you get
It's
to
like
live
live in
in
this
an apartment
palace.
you get to live in an apartment in the city.
Right.
You get to go to the UN and talk. And that's pretty much what you do, right? Because
Right.
whatever. It's not like you actually make policy, you just execute it.
Right.
You get to do what she does best, which is grandstand about DEI. In this case, though, DEI about the
Well,
whole world.
she's the DEI hire in
She
this
is the DEI hire,
situation.
right? And you get out of your ridiculous, awful shithole commute from the back of the beyond in northern New York.
Well, which she doesn't live there, and that's the other thing. Is
Right.
she has never really, so when she first ran up there, because she wasn't from the district and everybody knew it, and she used one of her parents' like vacation homes or like cabins in the woods or something like that. She used that address to run the first time. And so that was a big that was one of the marks against her up there, was that she
Yeah.
was like this, carpetbagger, blah 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 blah. But she mostly lives in Virginia. Like that's where all her friends are, because she was friends, she's friends with the Mitch McConnell staff and like those kinds of people. Like those are her friends. And that's her social circle. She doesn't hang up there. Those aren't her people.
Well,
And right.
guess where she's going to be hanging the next year and a half?
Right.
Because she's got to run again in a year and a half. And
Right.
what I wonder, what I find so fascinating, and you tell me what you think about this, Michelle.
Mhm.
There was no filing deadline where they had to either fish or cut bait, right? They could
Right.
have waited until next Tuesday.
Yep.
Because let's be honest, they are favored under normal circumstances. It
Mhm.
wouldn't be an issue, but they're still
Yeah.
favored to win those two seats
Mhm.
in the House next Tuesday, right?
Mhm.
And we don't even know when this New York 21 election was going to be scheduled.
No, they had 90 days. So once she resigned, Kathy
But she,
Hochul, Governor Kathy
but she
Hochul.
hasn't resigned yet, right?
Right,
So she has,
exactly. Exactly.
and and why not wait until next week unless they just got some crazy numbers, or why
That's
not
that's
or
that's what I was thinking. I was like, their internal polling must be saying something for them to do this like this.
but their internal polling is one thing. I mean, the he doesn't really trust polling anyway.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is this Pennsylvania thing, which I think a lot of people don't even know happened. But I want to say again for people who joined later than we started talking about, there was a special election on Tuesday in Pennsylvania, a district that Donald Trump won by 15 points. This is a
Mhm.
state Senate election in Pennsylvania, so this is not a House race. This is not a federal race.
Right.
State Senate. I mean, like people don't even turn out for those on a good day. Never mind in a special election. It wasn't even close. The Democrat won that district for the first time in decades, and it wasn't even close. So that must have freaked them the hell out.
Mhm.
That must have scared them to death.
Yep.
And I have to wonder whether, based on that alone, they pulled the rug out from under her, or they just said, well, we desperately need an ambassador in the United Nations right now. We can't sit around waiting for her to resign because, and see how this happens. I don't know if something happened with the UN, but they don't care enough about the UN.
No, they don't. And she's been running her mouth about the UN and how it
She sat at
sucks.
yeah, and at the State of the Union, by the way, she sat with the cabinet. She didn't sit with the House. So she's been cosplaying ambassador for months.
It's like she got a ticket to ride in Delta One, and then the next on the way back they put her in like the back row of coach. You know what I
No,
mean?
no, 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 not even on the way back. It's like she got a ticket to ride to Delta One, and right before she boarded,
Right.
they took it away and said, "Your head is banging up against the toilet seat in the very last row of economy." Which, P.S., I flew back from DC
Oh,
last
it's
night,
so good.
and my plane was delayed. I had to ride with the back of my head banging
Oh
up against the
no,
toilet
that's
economy.
awful.
But it doesn't matter because
Yeah.
that's what's happening to her. She is
Mhm.
going to have to go up there and spend all of her time reacquainting herself with the constituents that she could not have cared less about
Oh no, no, no.
since the moment that she decided that she was going to be the vice president of the United States.
Mhm.
That didn't work out. And of course, it didn't work out, Elise Stefanik, for one simple reason. You're a woman. That's
Mhm.
one. And two
Yes.
is you don't have the look.
Yeah.
You don't have the look. He has
Yep.
a very particular look of women that he likes,
Yep.
and you don't have it.
Nope. And she's tried. I mean, I've
She's
watched her.
tried. She's tried
It's
real
if she
hard.
wasn't such a terrible person, I would feel bad. You know what I mean? Because it's not like she's like, you know, a horribly looking, bad looking person. Like she's very normal looking, and I think,
It's
but
what
she was doing that like the Fox News like get up.
let me tell you something. All of these women, I mean, who am I to judge? I did the Fox News thing when I worked at
I
Fox
know.
News, but I didn't really have a
Like
choice, right? But like this is what I look like in real life. If you ever Google my videos from Fox News, this is not what appeared on camera. But what I find so fascinating is like these women have gone like you look at Christy
Mhm.
Nome, and I don't want to judge
Oh.
anybody for their looks, but like the transformation to look like what Donald Trump wants you to look like is
Mhm.
astounding. And Elise
Mhm.
Stefanik tried that, and it infuriates me because again, she's not like she has gotten to where she's gotten based on her brain,
Yes.
based on her moxie,
Yep.
based on her intelligence. based on her ambition. I may not agree with her, but for her to then try to go and kind of recreate this Fox News look in order to even
Right.
more ingratiate herself to Trump, like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
Like, what are you doing?
I know.
What are
It's
you doing?
it's and I mean, listen, I don't want to make accusations, but I've watched her, how do I say this and like be respectful? Because there's always a line for me like, talking about women and these kinds of things, but it's I watched her looks kind of shift and sway and go up and down and up and down, and I was like, man, she is like struggling. She is wanting so badly to be accepted into this world. And that's, I always think about, the comparisons we all make to Handmaid's Tale and how, we're becoming this oppressive, fascist, authoritarian society and, oppressing women. And I'm like, but the thing is, I don't think if and when it happens that we're going to be walking around with, things over our heads, because the way that they see their ideal beauty woman is kind of like this big titty, like big, you know, eyelashes and tan and Christy Nome. I mean, that's it's
Christy, no, and but I'll tell you,
submissive.
it's not just about women because
Yeah.
Matt Gates, look at what Matt Gates did to his face.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
and again, let me say this. I am the last person to actually ever mock anybody for what they look like, and I will
Mhm.
go so far as to say whenever anybody would make weight jokes about Chris Christie, whom I was never a fan
Yeah.
of, I would go
Not
ballistic. Like,
yeah, it's not right.
I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I don't think
Mhm.
it's right. If you want to criticize somebody based on what they say or what they do, go to town, but
Yep.
most people can't help what they look like. The
Mhm.
only reason I think we're bringing this up, just for people who might be
Yeah.
confused about why we're talking about somebody's looks, especially women's looks, which I never
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
do,
yeah.
is not because I care what you look like. It is because they are going so far to ingratiate themselves with Donald Trump. And
Yep.
this, by the way, again, as I said, it's Christy Nome, it's her, it's
Yeah.
Matt Gates, it's all of these MAGA weirdos
Yep.
that at some point you have to kind of stop and say, is it really worth is it worth it?
I know.
Is it worth it? Is there surely there must be something else you can do with your life
Mm.
that gives you some sort of self-respect back?
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something, it's not worth it.
No.
It's not. And I mean, I wish I didn't have my NDA with Fox so I could talk about some of the stuff that we had to do
Oh, yeah.
to look a particular way. But let me tell you something, the reason I don't work at Fox anymore, one of them is because I after a while you just say no. You don't want to
Right.
go that far. And you know, uh, I think what's fascinating about all of this is that after everything she did, I mean, this is such, it's not that it's poetic justice. I think it's actually a warning that
Yeah.
after everything she did, after all of it,
Mhm. Listen, there's
she's right back where she started.
exactly. And listen, I mean, the house, the set, I mean, I'm sure she feels like she has outgrown the house. She doesn't want to be there anymore.
Of
It's a
course.
lot of it's a lot of riffraff. She's risen, or she's at another level now.
Yep.
And this was her ticket out of the house and onto, greener pastures and to more power and more prestige. And again, to your point, she's going to have to go back with her tail between her legs. And, I have a former colleague who wrote a book, you know, everything Trump touches dies. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of like perfectly,
And
that's it.
and look
Look
at the
what
woman.
happens.
Yeah, and look at the woman who she replaced. Let's talk about Liz Cheney, who, by the
Yeah.
way, when they were both in the House together, Liz Cheney's voting record was much closer to Trump's than Elise Stefanik's. So, from a
Hmm.
purely policy standpoint, which is what should matter,
Right.
Liz Cheney should be ascendant and Elise Stefanik should be playing catch up. But Liz
Mm.
Cheney, with whom I agree on very little, but I do agree on the most important things,
Yeah.
left the House after putting up a good fight in a primary. They didn't drive her out, MAGA. You didn't drive her out. She ran in a primary and she lost to Harriet Hageman, who's
Hmm.
one of you MAGA people. But she left going, she went down fighting.
Yeah.
And then while she was there, she decided that she was going to forego every other policy priority that she had in order to protect the most important one, which is
Right.
our democracy
Yep.
and our Constitution.
Yep.
And I don't know what she's doing with the rest of her life, but whatever she's doing with the rest of her life will be so much more meaningful than
Yeah.
Elise Stefanik,
Yeah. My God.
who is going to go back to the House. And listen, for all I know, we're going to lose these elections on Tuesday. I hope not.
I
Listen,
mean,
as we keep saying, we won Alabama in 2018, and we won a Senate seat in
mm,
Alabama. If we could pull that off, anything's
right.
possible.
These are not normal times.
These are not
Not
normal
by a long
times.
shot.
But even if they said to her, "Hey, go back now," and then we will, next opening, next opportunity, we'll bring you back into the cabinet. Even if they
Yeah.
swore up and down, the humiliation of having to she was sitting with first she was sitting with the House. Then she's now sitting with the cabinet, except oh no, you're not actually in the cabinet. You were just cosplaying. And now,
Mhm.
next State of the Union, as of
Mhm.
today, she's going to be back with the House.
It's
It's
what
kind of embarrassing. At
oh,
that
it's
point,
super embarrassing.
at that point, and she's not on committees. Right? That's the best part, right? She
Yeah.
actually has been serving the House, but they didn't put her on any committees because she thought they'd
Right.
be out of there.
Right.
So I guess they'll give her a few committees back. I don't know what committees. Maybe she's negotiated some good committee
I mean, I'm sure that
assignments for
there's
herself.
been something, but I listen, I can picture Trump, giving her a call and be like, hey honey, listen, this is what we need you to do. Like I just the condescension, I'm sure. Listen, I can only imagine what it's like to be a woman in that world and be talked down to and insulted on a regular basis. But I also just want to say they're not victims. They have chosen this. They
Oh
allow
yes,
this. They allow this. They have allowed themselves to be in this situation. I blame them just as much as anybody else. Um, it's she is. I just.
she
I
knows
like.
she is. Yeah, I don't feel bad for her. I think we've had these discussions before. Tara brought it up yesterday.
Mhm,
Or was it Tara? Somebody brought it up yesterday as they're over it,
mhm.
about Usha Vance. And I
Yeah.
had this, yeah, yeah. And I had this
Mhm,
discussion. I think we all had this discussion even earlier than that with Cheryl Hines, who's married to Robert F. Kennedy
mhm, mhm.
Jr. And, you know, at least I guess you could say for the two of them, not that this is any excuse whatsoever, well, they're doing it because they're in love with their husbands and they're doing, they're
Yeah.
they're holding their nose because their husbands are asking them to.
Right.
I love my
Right.
husband. I know you love yours. I
Yeah.
have a fantastic marriage. I know you do too.
Mhm.
If my husband came to me and said, "Hey, I need you to go to Mar-a-Lago with me because Donald Trump expects to see you there," you know what I would say to him? I love you and you love me, which is why you're going to go to Mar-a-Lago by yourself, and I'm going to stay here because that's just not my cup of tea.
Yeah. No. No
And
way.
and that's how it works.
Yep.
And but at least you can make the excuse. I guess you can make the excuse
Yeah.
that they're married. She has no excuse. She's the principal in
Fun.
this case.
Yeah.
Nobody's holding a gun to her head.
No, but right.
Nobody.
Right. And
And
her husband, by the way, is like a big gun guy. He does like I don't know. He does something with the gun lobby. Like it's just I I can't. She's a mom too. That's the other thing. She is a mom. She has a little boy, and I'm just like, how do y'all live with yourselves? Like I don't even know. And how do you want to be part of the generation? Tara said this yesterday too. I don't want to be part of the generation that allowed democracy to die in the United States. And she's not even just allowing it to die, she's pushing it over the cliff.
yeah,
And
and and by the way, I say this as somebody who it was so predictable. What she did with the universities was so predictable. Let me
mhm,
preface this whole discussion by saying that I was appalled at how Columbia University conducted itself
mhm.
and how they allowed pro-Palestinian protesters to take over and shut down their campus.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I am all for protest, but not at the expense of people being able to perform their
Yeah,
daily tasks, like, oh, I
right.
don't know, going to classes for which they paid yearly $100,000
Hmm.
a year
Not to
to go.
mention the neighborhood. I mean, I live
Not
near
not
Columbia. It was nuts.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to that, but it
Right.
was so predictable for everybody that was cheering her on. And this includes a lot of Democrats who were cheering her on, and the way she went after the presidents of Harvard, the way she went after the presidents of Columbia and Penn.
Mhm.
And she got her scalps. That's really how she put herself on the map this most recent time around. She got her
Mhm.
scalps. But if you never assumed and you didn't think that it would inevitably lead from that to what is happening now, where they are snatching
Uh,
people off the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts, and New York City, New York,
mm,
and disappearing them to prisons in Louisiana,
eh,
which consult a map is nowhere near New York, New York, or Somerville, Massachusetts,
no.
because they
Terrifying.
had the temerity to say something proactively in support of the Palestinians in
Mhm.
Gaza, even if that stuff is noxious to you, even if you can't stand with their message.
Right.
That was a direct line from A to B. And
Yep.
she knew it. And she was a leader in it.
Mhm.
Because when you start going after people, not just on how they're protecting and keeping safe members of their community, which was absolutely something that she should have raised and Congress should have raised,
Right.
but she went further. She went further. She started questioning freedom of speech and
Yeah.
freedom of thought on college campuses. The same people who, God, I sat next to them for years at Fox, called every college student a snowflake and they want their safe space and snowflakes and they don't allow any diversity of opinion. You don't want any diversity of opinion because you're snatching people off the streets right now because you don't
Mhm.
agree with their opinions.
Yep.
That's it. They're not providing material support to terrorists.
Right. They're just angry about that,
They're
which they
just
have every right to be. Like, I mean, that's
They
we
have as
may
much right to be angry about that as you
right.
have a right to be angry about anything you're angry about right now.
Right. Right. And
But
the
if
other thing that pisses me
yeah,
off is like they hide behind the Israel issue, not to get in a whole conversation about this.
you're
I was
such
like,
an
they don't give a shit about the Jews. Are you
not
kidding
at
me?
all. Not listen, let me tell you something. My very, very, very good friend, truly one of my best friends, was the attorney who sued people in the people in Charlottesville, Virginia, the
Mhm.
neo-Nazis, right?
Wow.
She sued them civilly and she bankrupted them. Richard Spencer, that whole crew. It was a if anybody ever wants to watch an HBO documentary about it, they had a great documentary on
Wow.
HBO about it. Not one time did any of these people, whether it's Elise Stefanik or Donald Trump or anybody else, lend any
Mhm.
kind of support to that lawsuit
Right.
to
Very
sue the
fine
people
people.
who scream Jews will not replace us.
Mhm.
When you have Donald Trump telling the Jewish community, and this I get very, very, very upset about because I happen to be Jewish. And
Yep.
by the way, not only do I happen to be Jewish, I'm actually a Zionist Jew. And I'm still telling you how disgusted I am about not still. It is because I'm a Jew that I know which way this is going to
Right.
go.
Right.
And because what's going to happen is it's not going to stop with the Palestinian sympathizers. It's going to come for the rest of us next.
Mhm.
So I'm telling you right now, not one time, not one time has this man ever said anything positive about the Jewish community. He confuses Bibi Netanyahu with the Jewish community. That is as stupid as confusing Donald Trump with Americans, right? There are some people who are Jewish who like him. There are some people who are
Right.
Jewish who don't like him. There's some
Right.
Americans who like Trump. There's some Americans who don't like Trump. Just because you like Bibi Netanyahu doesn't mean that I'm supposed to like you.
Right.
In fact, from my perspective, quite the opposite.
Right.
But more relevantly, Michelle, the part that really pisses me off, I mean, this really ticks me off, is this is a guy who stands there and tells Jews that they're bad Jews because they're supporting
Oh,
Democrats,
I know.
right? Consistently, he's consistently done this. The guy that said, "Oh, well, you guys will appreciate, you like money." So, like every
Oh
trope,
my
every
God.
stereotype, and then we're supposed to hear from all these MAGA assholes. Well, what are you talking about? His daughter's Jewish, and his like, I don't. So yeah, and
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 like you think that there weren't, there's not people of any race or religion or creed that doesn't, somehow aid and abet like the demise of their own people. I
yeah,
mean, this happens all the
all the
time. That's
time,
how it happens.
all the time. That's exactly how it happens.
Right.
And Elise Stefanik was at the forefront of that.
Mhm.
She was at the forefront of that.
Yep.
And for every single, I just remember this so well. There were all of these people in the Jewish community that were literally sending around these memes to each other about how, oh my God, look at how great Elise Stefanik is, and she's
Mm.
striking a blow for
I
us.
know.
And we
I
got to
know.
send her money. And she raised a ton of money based on this. And to me, it was like, do you not know your history? Do you not see which way this wind is blowing?
I know.
Because it is this much. It is literally, if you can see my this much distance between what she was doing and that being done to you.
Hmm.
And
It has
she
to
is
start somewhere, you
and
know?
that, yeah, and she is responsible for that. She is
Yep.
responsible for that. And
Yep.
now she's going to go back to the house with her, you know, well, she's going to go to the house with her tail tucked between her legs, I think, except that of course she's going to get a standing ovation from the
Oh,
conference, the
yeah.
Republican conference, and you saved us, and you're a hero, and look at Elise Stefanik, how selfless.
Taking one for the team and the whole
Yeah, and fell on the
campaign.
sword for the president, and and God knows what they promised her in order to do this. Although they didn't have to promise her anything, she probably just got the
I mean, she
nomination.
had no
Thank.
choice. Right.
Yeah, but but what is so incredibly hilarious to me, and I have to keep going back to this point, is nobody in MAGA world, because they don't watch anything other than Fox and they don't listen to
Mhm.
anything other than all of their weirdo Joe Rogan podcasts. Nobody is going to sit and think, well, why would they do this?
Right.
Maybe there is something to the fact that they're worried about the fact that nobody likes their policies. If they're sitting here panicked about losing
Right.
a Republican seat that's been a Republican seat for a long time.
Yep. I know. It's if this and the thing is like, they the cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. And
Yeah.
these people continue to believe and twist themselves into these pretzels to try to like make sense of whatever it is, to see anything than the truth of what is happening in front of them. And this is a common trait of people, of humanity. This happens over and over and over and over again. Um, and here we are. And here we are. And I think I think about, sometimes the when the concentration camps were liberated at the end of World War II. I know that they went around to the communities around the camps and all the Germans, that lived around. Oh, we didn't know that this was happening here.
Oh,
We didn't know. Like, stop. Yes, you did. You all know. It's just what you choose to believe or what you even want to admit to yourself that you saw. And it happens over and over and over again. Same with the
so
Christine Elm thing with the last night too, which is just
yeah, well, I'll tell you something. I've been to Auschwitz, and what if anybody on this chat has been to Auschwitz, let me know if you had the same reaction that I did. So when you go to Auschwitz, and I don't want to belabor this too much, other than to,
yeah.
to prove your point, there's really two camps, right? There's Auschwitz one, which is the work camp,
Hmm.
with the famous, Arba Mike Fry, work makes free sign. And then
Hmm.
there's Birkenau, Auschwitz two, which is not that close. You have to you
Right.
have to drive. You can't really. I mean, I'm sure I'm sure they walked, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not easy to walk to. You have to drive, and that's the extermination camp.
Yeah.
And the Allies bombed um, the gas chambers on their way out, or the Germans. I'm sorry, I think the Germans, not the Allies. Excuse
Mm,
me, the Germans blew up the gas chambers on their way out as they were evacuating. They didn't want any evidence,
right.
but you still have the ruins of the gas chamber, and right behind the gas chamber, abutting the gas chamber, is a gate, like a fence, not even a gate, like a
Mhm.
fence, like a barbed wire fence.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the barbed wire fence, I don't know, 100 feet, I'm really bad with distance, but like maybe 100 feet, 200 feet,
Mm,
like literally right behind it
yeah.
is a house
Right.
that regular, not Germans, that regular Poles lived in. It's in
Mhm.
Poland. That regular people lived in.
Yeah.
There is no way that the ash was not falling from that gas chamber, from that crematorium. I'm sorry, not even
Right.
gas chamber, the crematorium.
Right.
There is no way that that ash was not falling from the crematorium on those
Mhm.
people's front yard.
Yep.
And there's no way they didn't smell the burning flesh.
Mhm.
And yet, I'm sure if you asked them where they were, they would have either said, "Oh, I was away," or they would have
Right.
said, "I didn't know anything. Like I saw
Yeah.
nothing."
Yeah.
And you brought up Christy Nome. I have
Mhm.
been so sick over the Christy Nome images that I legitimately can't even like I haven't done a Substack on it yet. I tried. I tried writing today. I just
Yeah.
can't do it. Like
Yeah.
I can't process what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
You have a woman who is standing there posing like like concentration camp Barbie in her full on makeup and her little hat, her baseball hat, with her extensions and her little
Yeah. Her
cap
little
teeth,
costume.
her little costume, and her little cap teeth that she went down to Texas and got for free in exchange for publicity for this dental place. Although she
Wait, for
claimed,
real?
oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ. All right.
She was
Oh
she
my
was literally
God.
doing a promo for some dentist in Texas. I was like,
Oh,
why would you do that? Because as we all know, North Dakota is nowhere near Texas.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, she was doing all of that,
Mm.
and she's standing there in front of, and we've seen stories of who some of these people are.
Yeah.
One of them has a tattoo. They basically rounded up everybody who had a tattoo, who was,
Hmm.
who was here legally, by the way, but happened to have a tattoo. This guy had a tattoo in honor of, right, I think it was right here,
Yeah.
in honor of autism because his little brother is autistic.
Yep.
They got they picked up a gay barber
Hmm.
who was sobbing, saying, "I'm not here illegally. I didn't do anything wrong." They kidnapped him, flew him down there, shaved his head as he's sobbing for his mother. He has been disappeared to a prison in El Salvador where it's like a torture chamber. I mean, we're
And he's a
literally,
refugee, and he
and
had
so
gone
refugee.
through, right, he had gone through all of the legal processes to escape his country to come here for a better, safer life, and was here legally. And they rounded him up because, I
I mean,
just,
listen, I know that we're not a party to the international court, criminal court. I know that
mm,
none of these people are going to The Hague. And even if we were a party to it, we're the United States, nobody's sending our executives, our leadership to The Hague.
should.
But I'll tell you, and I mean it, and I will not vote for a Democrat who doesn't commit to this. Donald Trump better pardon all of these people on his way out the door.
Yeah.
Because if he doesn't, if there's one more goddamn Democrat, and I really mean this, and please hear me on this, who says we have to go back to norms, we're not about retribution, we have to move on. No,
No way.
no, no. You need a Nuremberg court for what these people are doing.
Yep.
They are kidnapping people off the streets and they're sending them to places in like Louisiana, and they're even worse, they're sending them to El Salvador, which is run by a whack job who does not believe in human rights. They're sending them to the fucking gulag. I'm sorry, Dad, if you're listening, but this one really merits it.
Hmm.
It is the gulag. And I come from a family that spent years and decades in the gulag. My great grandfather was shot in the gulag. My grandfather spent a decade in the gulag doing hard labor for doing nothing more than being a religious Jew. So I know this. I know this. This is not who the United States is. There better be some accountability. And I swear to God, I don't care if you're the second coming of Jesus Christ, if you don't have some accountability for this, if you pull a Joe Biden and you say, well, we're going to move on from the other guy, we're not going to focus. No, no. Prosecution to these people they belong in Guantanamo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Christy Nome belongs in a Supermax facility for what she's doing. How do you
I,
go down there and how is it possible? We are paying, somebody said this, you're so right. We are paying El Salvador, and God knows how we're paying them, by the way, because
oh, I
probably
know.
turning a blind eye to all of their bullshit too.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's, it's unfathomable that we are here, but we
yeah.
are.
And
And
Lisa Stefanik was part of it. She was
yeah.
part of it. She was going to go to the United Nations and she was going to defend these
Oh,
causes.
absolutely. Because I mean, listen, we're the international community, as much as we are the states, and people aren't going to hold us, accountable in the way that they are other countries. But I don't know for how much longer, quite frankly, because we have isolated ourselves from all of our allies, including Canada. And I mean, I could see her going into the UN and like shit talking Canada or trying to pick a fight
Of
with.
course she
It's
is.
just, it's and it's she is. I don't know what she believes in. I used to think maybe she believed in one thing and then was just sacrificing it for power or whatever, but I actually think she's a
No,
nihilist.
no.
I don't. I think
I
she's a
think
nihilist.
she believes in herself,
Right.
right? She
She's a
believes in
Mitch
herself.
McConnell. She's Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, except Mitch McConnell, to Mitch McConnell's credit, had
Mhm.
one thing he really believed in, and that was the courts. Mitch McConnell
Yeah.
was going to transform the federal judiciary, and
Mhm.
Mitch McConnell was going to make the federal judiciary in the image of Mitch McConnell. And P.S. Congratulations, Mitch McConnell, because you
Right.
succeeded.
Right.
Right? Like I have all the listen, I have respect for Mitch McConnell because unlike our Senate Minority Leader, when he was Senate Minority Leader, he really knew how to pull those levers.
Yep.
So, like Mitch McConnell accomplished what Mitch McConnell wanted to accomplish. She is Donald Trump. She believes just in herself. She is in his image.
Yeah.
And again, unlike these, you know, she's like a Rubio, where she just decided,
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna
Yeah.
sacrifice everything else. She's just like Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio also doesn't believe in any of this stuff. But Marco
No,
Rubio sat
he's
there while
yeah.
Vladimir Zelensky was eviscerated and
Mhm.
piled on. First, he was sitting
Yeah.
there like this, like I can't believe this is happening, and then he made a calculated decision. Well, you know what? What the hell? Since it is happening, I'm going to join in. So
Yeah. Can't
these
beat him,
people,
join him.
these people all suck. If anybody here lives in Florida and you are within driving distance of Florida 1 and
Yes.
Florida 6, I beg of you, drive over there, do some phone banking from your house if you can, do
Yep.
some lid drops. If you have a few bucks to spare and you don't live in Florida, or you do live in Florida, you want to send a few bucks down to either of those campaigns, I am sure they can use,
Mhm.
even if it's $1 or $2, you can use
Yeah.
whatever you can give. If you have the money, if
Anything.
you don't, that's okay. If you have friends in Florida who live in those towns, in those either of those two districts, please call them and remind them there's an election, that they should come out to vote.
Mhm.
They should see, well, I think we're past the voter purge registration, but
Yeah.
Florida's making it almost impossible to vote if you're not their voter.
Right.
So obviously bear that in mind. But you guys, we pulled off something, not we, because I had nothing to do with it, but the Democrats in Pennsylvania pulled something off on Tuesday
Mhm.
that nobody was paying attention to,
Yep.
and they did it. And it's rattling them, because that's why Lee Stefanik is with her tail between her legs, going back up to the North Country of New York State
Yep.
and not living in her swank apartment in Sutton Place, um, on the east side,
Stay
hanging out at
there.
hanging out at cocktail parties and grandstanding, in the General Assembly and on the National Security Council of not National Security Council, excuse me, on the, Security Council of the United Nations,
Mhm.
which of course she was gonna do. By the way, Lee Stefanik, in some ways, there probably is a God, and he did you a favor, because you would have gone down in history as voting with Russia against
Yeah.
everybody else on the Security Council, and
Mhm.
vetoing resolutions like, oh, I don't know, Ukraine good, Russia bad. You would have joined Russia and North Korea and Belarus,
And Iran and
and
yeah.
Iran in vetoing that resolution. So in some ways, history will judge you much more kindly now that you're just a mere congresswoman again, one of
Mhm.
435. But this is all very interesting. This is the biggest tell. With Trump,
Oh,
listen to what
absolutely.
he does, not what he says.
Yep. Yep.
They are scared shitless. They're scared out of their minds. You guys, it is 5 o'clock. We've been at this for an hour. I got to
Mhm.
run because I have to actually,
Yeah.
look at a few focus groups that I'm, overseeing tonight. But I'm super glad that we were able to do this, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks for doing this. And I just want to say really quick, our friend who co-hosts our show over it with us, Joanne Carducci, she is part of a fundraiser kind of virtual event tonight for the two special elections in Florida. And there's going to be a bunch of special guests there, Nikki Fried, Jamie Raskin. So go to at Jojo from Jers. I think she's probably posted about it, how to join. And then Tara Setmayer and myself, we are doing our show, The Stakes, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, the Seneca Project YouTube page. And we have our special friend, our wonderful friend, former Congressman Denver Riggleman, who's going to be talking to us about data analysis and signal gate, the whole thing that's going on with our national security, because he worked on January 6th committee. This is like his wheelhouse. This is what he does. So he's going to be joining us tonight at 7:30. I hope you'll come. But Julie, thank you so much for doing this and, lending your time. I think this was important that we did this.
Yeah,
So,
and thank you to the hundreds of people who showed up. Really
yeah.
grateful, on such short notice. I think it was about 15 minutes notice. So thank you to
Yeah.
everybody who showed up. Um, Saturday morning, coffee and conversation, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Hmm.
My favorite part of the week because we chill, we talk about our week, and we
Yep.
talk about the wackadoodle world that we live in. So grab your mimosas, grab your Bloody Marys, grab your coffee, grab your decaf coffee if you're me. Grab your phone or computer and come join us and send in your questions in the chat and we will answer them.
Yeah.
And so happy to be doing this with you guys and so happy to be doing this with you, Michelle. So have a great night,
Yes.
everybody. Listen to Michelle tonight at the stakes. Join JoJo's fundraiser if you can, for the Florida campaigns. And we will see you Saturday morning for the Saturday edition of Over It. Bye, everybody.